You know that feeling when you're scrolling through your feed and you just see nothing? Like no selfies, no vacation photos, no updates at all from that one friend. In a world where everyone's sharing everything, these people are basically ghosts. But what if that silence isn't what it looks like? We're about to dive into the psychology of why some of the most confident people you know might actually be the quietest ones online.
So yeah, what's the deal? Why are some people basically invisible online? We're going to break down the real psychology behind the folks who just don't feel that need to post every single move they make.
I think our first instinct is to slap a label on them, right? We think, oh, they must be shy or antisocial or maybe even insecure. But what if we've got it completely backward? What if their online silence is actually a sign of some serious inner strength?
All right, so let's move past those easy assumptions. It's time to really decode the mind of what we're calling the online ghost. Okay, first up, there's a trait called a high privacy orientation. Now, this is not about being antisocial or trying to hide something. It's all about valuing control over their own story. You know, think of it like you're the curator of your own museum. You get to decide what goes on display. These online ghosts, they just prefer to keep their inner world, well, inner.
And this is really the key. While so many of us are out there chasing validation through likes and shares, these folks, they generate it from within. They just don't need to broadcast their life to feel good about it. And that is such a subtle but really powerful sign of some deep inner security.
And that brings us right to our second key trait, which is this idea of choosing privacy over popularity. It's a choice that's really rooted in a super clear sense of who you are.
Which leads us to this fascinating concept called self-concept clarity. Basically, what this means is that people who share less often, they tend to have an incredibly strong and stable sense of who they are. It's like their internal compass is already set. They know their values, they know their goals, so they just don't need the outside world to constantly tell them if they're heading in the right direction.
And this comparison really lays it all out, doesn't it? On one hand, you've got happiness that is totally tied to what other people think. It goes up and down with every single like. And on the other hand, you have this internal happiness. It's self-sourced, it's stable, it's consistent, and it is definitely not at the mercy of some algorithm.
So this brings us to our third trait, a kind of grounded confidence that just doesn't need an audience. Let's meet this self-aware user.
The psychological term for this is secure self-esteem, and it's exactly what it sounds like, a type of confidence that thrives without needing constant attention from the outside world. These people aren't posting selfies to prove their worth, because deep down they already feel complete. Their self-worth just isn't up for a public vote.
And the result of having this secure self-esteem? Well, it's pretty profound, actually. People with this kind of emotional balance are less anxious, they're way less approval-seeking, and you'll find they're a lot more focused on hitting their real-world goals instead of just curating their online ones.
Okay, this brings us to our next big idea, a clear preference for depth over drama, for personal peace over public performance.
This preference for peace, it comes from a really interesting cognitive trait, an internal locus of evaluation. Yeah, I know, it's a bit of a mouthful, but all it really means is that they judge themselves by their own internal standards, not by the internet's constantly changing scorecard. This is why our online ghost would almost always choose one real, authentic conversation over 1,000 superficial likes and comments.
And this is so crucial. They just instinctively get the whole digital illusion. They're super aware of what's called social comparison theory. You know, that toxic trap where you measure your own messy, real life against someone else's perfectly polished highlight reel. Our social media ghost isn't just being quiet, they are actively, strategically opting out of that endless, exhausting cycle to protect their own mental health.
So when you put all these pieces together, what you get is a totally new and honestly, a much deeper view of what confidence looks like in this digital age.
So let's just connect all the dots here. The real hallmarks of this kind of inner security are things like valuing your privacy, having a strong sense of self-awareness, being emotionally secure, being deeply introspective, and totally getting that digital illusion. See, these online ghosts, they aren't missing out on anything. They're just playing a completely different game.
So, the next time you notice one of these online ghosts, maybe don't jump to the conclusion that they're antisocial or insecure. They might just be more grounded than most of us. They don't need to be seen by everybody to feel seen by the people who actually matter. And that's real confidence.
Which kind of leaves us with something to chew on, doesn't it? In a world that's constantly demanding we perform, I'll just leave you with this one question. What does real confidence really look like to you?